This is the Wealth Guardian Show. I am Doug Ray. You know, it truly is the tale of two retired couples. They're roughly the same ages. They've saved nearly the exact same amount of money for retirement. They even live in the same city. Nearly everything about them's identical. But you never know it, because these two retired couples are living completely different lifestyles in retirement. One of the couples is just living it up. They're playing golf every day, traveling, and doing nice things for their kids and their grandkids. Yet the other couple is just scraping by. They literally have to watch every nickel they spend. So why is that? How can that possibly happen? This isn't some far-fetched tale, folks. We see this happen every day. There's more than 40 million retirees living in the U.S. today. Some have retired very successfully, others not so much. Some have retired early or right on schedule, and others, well, they've had to work their entire lives. So the question is, what can you learn from those who have succeeded, and what can you learn from those who have failed? Coming up on today's show, we're going to reveal the hard lessons learned from retirees who've been there and done that. Plus, we'll give you some successful strategies being used today that could help you retire in style. But first, like I always like to start my show out, let me thank all of our men and women serving in the armed forces today. Thank you so much for your sacrifices and everything you do for us. Well, retiring successfully, that is today's topic. How do you do it? You know, I've literally seen, I don't know, by now it's got to be thousands of couples planning their retirement and so forth. And there are those that, I know as soon as I sit down with them in that very first meeting, in that very first hour, they're going to be very, very successful. I only have to put their numbers through the software. I can just look at it on paper. I've done so many of these. And then there's others that, well, you know, they may retire from what they're doing now, but you know they're going to have to work at something a little bit longer. So let's take a look at a list of things that I think can help you have a successful retirement. And, you know, that doesn't really necessarily come in any order. I just kind of scratched them down here on a notepad. But first off, you ought to anticipate how you'd occupy your time every day. It's a big change. You know, you're so used. You spent 30 years getting up in the morning, getting dressed and going into work and going through your routine and coming home. You're not going to have that every day. And the worst thing in the world you could possibly do is nothing. You know, if you retire, especially if your goal is to retire early, say in your early 60s, you need to have something to do, whether it's a part-time job, a hobby, volunteering at church, synagogue, whatever the case may be. Figure out how to occupy your time. You might even want to consider the possibility of working after retiring. You know, you see a lot of guys out on the golf course and they're marshals, rangers, and whatnot. It's kind of turning their hobby into something fun for them. You also need to anticipate the effect of retirement on your spouse. Because that's going to change. Your spouse is used to you being gone all day long during those work hours. And now you're going to be there with them most of the time. How's that going to impact you? You need to think about and this is one of the toughest things for people to do, I think, and you need to think of your budget going into retirement. You know, that's something a lot of people just don't have their handle around. It's so important because our goal, if you come in and sit down with me, and I would say even my competitors out there are all of our goal, is to get you through the rest of your life maintaining your standard of living without running out of your money. That's ultimately the goal. Now, what is your standard of living? That's what you spend every month. And that includes not just what you pay in taxes and food, and that includes stuff like Well, Christmas presents, birthday presents, taking grandkids to fun events, everything that makes up your lifestyle. Let me give you a little case study about what I'm talking about, having a good handle on your budget, your standard of living. Several years ago, I had a couple come into my office and we did their retirement plan. They told me their standard of living was about $4,000 a month. They had reserves put away. He was still working, but wanted to work maybe 3 or 4 more years and then retire. Everything planned out beautifully. They could enjoy their retirement on a $4,000 standard of living and be just fine. Well, about a year before retirement, they came back to fine-tune it. And guess what we found out? They grossly underestimated how much they spent. They spent almost $8,000 a month, not $4,000. They literally went out to eat almost every meal. Now, I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but you really have to come to grips with how much you spend, because at $8,000 a month, they didn't make it till age 75 before they ran out of money. That's what I'm getting at, having a good handle on your budget. Well, if you just tuned in, this is the Wealth Guardian Show. I'm Doug Ray, and today we're talking about what makes or breaks a successful retirement. You know, you can learn from people who've retired successfully, or from those who've failed, actually, too. As it turns out, you can learn quite a bit. One thing's for sure, retiring successfully today is not an accident. The single common denominator is they all have a plan. A sound, thoughtful retirement game plan that addresses everything from income, risk, asset allocation, inflation, taxes, Social Security, health care, Medicare, long-term care, and so much more. So, let us prove to you how easy it is to get started with our customized 5-point retirement master plan. We've helped hundreds of people right here in the Triad, right here in the Lake Norman, Mooresville, Statesville, Salisbury, Huntersville, Cornelius area. It doesn't cost a dime for this analysis for you. You got nothing to lose. So, if you've saved at least $100,000 for retirement, I want you to be one of the first 10 callers today. Right now, call this number, 336-391-3409, so that we can schedule you to do your free 5-point retirement master plan. You know, I'd love to be able to do this for everybody, but unfortunately, there's just not enough time in the day. So for the first 10 to call, 336-391-3409, we'll do your free 5-point retirement master plan. All right, one of the other components of a successful retirement is knowing exactly when you should turn your Social Security on. I know you've heard us talk about Social Security till I'm blue in the face, but it's such an important part of your retirement plan because, you know, so many of us today don't have a pension from work. So literally, Social Security is the only dependable monthly income we have. And turning it on at the proper time is incredibly important. You know, I tell everybody that comes to my office or to my Social Security workshops, you know, if you need it, go get it. Turn it on. It's yours. But if that's not the case, then a delayed strategy may make sense for you. There's a lot of reasons to turn your Social Security on early. One is simply if your goal is to retire early, say 62, and that's the only way you can do it, and we can put the numbers into the software and make sure that you're doing the right thing in terms of not running out of money in retirement, then go do it. I mean, honestly, if that's the goal, then go get your Social Security early. But on the other hand, the longer you hold off, remember, it's going to grow for you, guaranteed by the U.S. government at roughly 7% per year from 62 to 70, plus all the cost of living adjustments that are given. Now, another thing is understanding your other sources of regular income. How are you going to create income from that 401k plan? How are you going to create income from that IRA? What's the most tax efficient way to take that income? What are the tax implications of taking that income to your Social Security? Do you have any idea? How will that impact you over time? Because the more money you give to Uncle Sam means that's less money you're going to have in your late 70s and 80s and even into your 90s. You know, a few years ago, I saw this article. I don't know if it was, I can't remember if it was a Barron's article, a Newsweek, or whatever, but some financial firm, might have been a mutual fund company, did a survey. And they surveyed several thousand people over the age of 65 to find out what they feared the most. Everybody thought that the number one answer was going to be death, but it wasn't. The number one answer of these 65-year-old plus folks was not death, but running out of money before they ran out of life. Now, here's another sad fact. The other sad fact is this. It's something like 70% of Americans over 65 have less than $10,000 set aside for retirement. Now, use this as a wake-up call. If you're sitting there and you're in your 50s and you haven't put much away, start. Figure out how you can save every single possible dime before you retire. It's so important for you to do that. You know, I can do a lot of wonderful things, but one of the things I can't do is I cannot wave my financial advisor magic wand and give you a pot of gold. Just isn't going to happen. You know, somewhere along the lines, you got to do your part. Well, hang on. We'll be right back with more Wealth Guardians, and we'll talk about tips for how to have a very successful retirement. Well, welcome back. This is the Wealth Guardian Show. I'm Doug Ray. So how is it two retired couples who are roughly the same age with nearly the exact same amount of money saved for retirement enjoy two completely different lifestyles? One of them is living a life of leisure. They're playing golf every single day. They're traveling. They're having fun with their grandkids. Unfortunately, the other couple is just barely getting by. All right, so in this segment, we're going to continue down that path of trying to figure out what can you do, how can you create a successful retirement? You know, just this week, I sat down with a couple for the first time. They went through that initial process with me, and they're about 58, wanting to retire somewhere around 62 to 65. He owns a successful small business, and she works in the medical industry. And they have no debt. They have a good handle on how much they spend, which for them is reasonable. They're not living beyond their means. And by the time that hour was over, I had taken all my notes, asked them a lot of questions, got to understand what they were after. I can tell they're going to be very, very successful. And this couple had 3 kids. They put them through college, all of them. Didn't have to take loans out. So how do people do that and other people don't? Well, I can tell you this. One of the tricks is debt part of it. Going into retirement with no debt is very, very, very positive for a successful retirement. You know, I'm a big proponent of paying off your home. I know there's other financial advisors out there that don't believe in that, but I do. I'm a big proponent of not having much debt. You know, you've heard me caterwaul a lot about how much debt this government's got, and it's the same for personal debt. If you are up to your eyeballs in debt, honestly, aren't you a slave? You're a slave to whomever you owe, because you constantly have to be paying on that debt. So do the best that you possibly can to try to go into retirement debt-free. And yeah, that means, I know you're going to have to replace a car every few years. There's no doubt about that. And you might have to take out a loan to do it. But that's okay. But keep your debt as low as you possibly can. All right. While you're working, another thing you can do is just maximize all your retirement and your benefit options that you possibly can. For example, your 401k, does your employer match? What levels do they match to? Should you match, or should you contribute beyond the match? Or is it a better plan to contribute up to the match and then do something else with what's left over? Maybe contribute that to a Roth IRA or something like that. There's a whole lot of things that you need to think about that can be done while you're working to supercharge your retirement. And get on a savings plan. I know it's old, the adage of pay yourself first, but it's so true. Pay yourself first. Put money away first. My golly. Now, I just mentioned the 401k. If you're not at least contributing up to your company match, you're just leaving free money behind. At least do that. Okay. Let's talk about health insurance for a minute. We know that you get Medicare at 65. Then, of course, with that, you're going to have to purchase some supplements. Well, what happens before 65 if you retire, if you come off your company plan? Well, right now, you're going to have to go on private insurance to make up the difference. Yeah, there's COBRA for a while after you leave work, but that's not going to last forever. Now, I hate to tell you this, but I don't know if you've priced health insurance lately, but it ain't cheap, folks. And hopefully in the future, premiums will come down, but the cost of medical care has been skyrocketing over the years, and unfortunately, the Affordable Care Act turned out to be nothing affordable about it. The health insurance industry right now it's been turned upside down on its head. I have high hopes that things will get straightened out in the future, but honestly, if you're looking at retiring early and having to fund a health insurance plan for 2 or 3 years, I would tell you to budget at least $1,000 a month for 2 of you, probably more than that, and you're going to end up with a pretty high deductible plan to boot. Probably something between $7,000 and $10,000 in a deductible. Heck, my own plan is a corporate-sponsored plan, and I think we're paying like $1,400 a month, and we have a $7,500 deductible, and that's a company-sponsored plan. So that I have seen that one thing scare a lot of people away from retiring early. They just don't have an idea of what health insurance is going to cost. So if you just joined us, this is the Wealth Guardian Show. I'm Doug Ray, and today we're talking about what's the difference between a successful retirement and one that's not so successful. And let me also mention to you, we have a lot of great articles on retirement and Social Security and asset allocation and investing on our website at www.thewealthguardians.com. I've even got some great instructional videos on there that you can take a look at. They're not long. They're, a couple, 3, 4, 5 minutes in length. But these are primers to help you start down that path towards a successful retirement. So I'd invite you to go to our website at thewealthguardians.com. And also, we have all our radio shows podcast on there as well. It's under the radio tab. So if there's something you've missed or you want to go back and review, you can do that. Let me ask you something. Do you wonder if you still should be invested in the stock market at this stage of life? And do you also wonder how and when you should claim your Social Security benefits? How much can you or should you withdraw from your retirement accounts every year to avoid what could be thousands in taxes and penalties and fees? Or do you wonder how to prevent an illness with you or your spouse or a parent from becoming a financial catastrophe? Well, if you've thought about those questions, you're not alone, because even if you've saved and invested for retirement, these are all critical components of your retirement game plan. Get the answer to those questions and more with our customized 5-point master retirement plan. This plan will show you how to make the very most out of every nickel you've saved for retirement. Now, unfortunately, I'd love to do it for everybody listening today, but I can't. But for the first 10 callers, I'll do it for you for free. It won't cost you a dime, and there's no obligation on your part. You got nothing to lose. So if you've saved at least $100,000 in an IRA, a 401k, or even just in a regular savings account or whatever, give us a call at 336-391-3409, 336-391-3409, and get that 5-point master retirement plan. Let me tell you what it's going to cost you. A little bit of time. We're going to spend about an hour getting to know each other and me taking some detailed notes about you and what your goals are. Yeah, I'll even feed you while you're there. We'll give you a cup of coffee and some crackers. But I'll get that information. I'll put the plan together for you, and then you'll come back for another meeting, and we'll go over that plan with some recommendations and so forth, which you're free to take all the recommendations, some of them or none of them. Like I said, there's no obligation on your part. So call 336-391-3409. All right, let's take a look at another situation that could have a really negative impact on your retirement lifestyle. And that's not having long-term care or home health care covered in some form of insurance. You know, I ask everybody when they come in and meet for the first time, do you have long-term care insurance? And I would say 1 in 10 do. That's 90% of you out there who do not. Now, I don't know if you've ever had an experience with something like this. You know, we're talking about a debilitating situation that could be long-term, or it could be permanent, or it could be temporary. But regardless, it is going to be very expensive. You know, my wife and I just went through an episode with my father-in-law that thankfully he's covered, but he had to be in the hospital over Christmas. He was in the hospital over a month and going through rehab. Again, thankfully he's covered, but he's going to have some home health care for a while when he gets back. And it's not cheap, folks. It will erode your assets. It will take a bite out of your income, whether you've got a pension, Social Security, or whatever. There's a lot of really good long-term care plans out there now. It's not like the old-fashioned stuff where if you never used it, you'd lose all the money that you paid into it. It's not like the old-fashioned stuff where premiums keep going up every single year. These plans are guaranteed in one fashion or the other. As you go through life, you're going to use it one way or the other. Either you're going to use it because you have a need, home health or long-term care, or you can get your money back. Let's say you win the lottery and you don't need this stuff anymore. You can get your money back that you put into it. Or if you go through life and thankfully the Lord's blessed you and you never had to use this stuff, then a beneficiary is going to get a tax-free death benefit that is probably about twice the money that you put into the policy. So some way or the other, you're going to get the benefits of a long-term care policy. And, you know, this whole time, think about it. You have the peace of mind knowing that you're covered should that unfortunate event occur, God forbid a stroke or something like that. Just real quickly, a lot of people think about moving, maybe moving to the beach or moving to the mountains or to Florida when they retire. You got to think about that and put that into the plan if that is a goal of yours, because that can have a positive or a negative impact on your overall retirement. Maybe you're going to downsize. Maybe you're going to sell your house and move into something smaller, say a condo at the beach or something like that. But forward planning makes so much sense in order for you to have a successful retirement. So take us up on that offer. Give us a call at 336-391-3409, and let's put a plan together for you today. And we'll see you next week right here on the Wealth Guardians radio program.